Welcome to everybody joining tonight. My name is Shuo Pesco Yang. I am a climate activist and a friend of PowerShift Network. Tonight, we will be discussing the intersection of the climate crisis and the movement for Black Lives with two fantastic activists. And before I introduce them, I think I'm going to confess that I was slow to realize many of the things that we will be talking about tonight. These things are about the role of police in society, where they stem from, where the carceral system stems from, and what structures and forces they reinforce within society. But suffice it to say that, for these last few years and the last few centuries, it's been clear that the enforcers show more care for the property of corporations and the owner class than they do for Black lives. And my awakening was kind of, well, if the role of police is to protect property and the climate crisis is the great amplifier of inequities, what will the role of police evolve to become as the climate crisis unfolds? How will they reinforce and deepen the fissures that exist? And these are some of the questions and issues that I'm so excited to hear our two speakers talk about. So without further ado, you're here to hear them, not me. I'll just kick it off. Valencia Gunder, also known as V by many, is an enthusiastic, self-motivated, and driven community leader and Miami native who's been branded as the modern-day Fannie Lou Hamer. She is the founder and co-director of the Smile Trust and co-founder of the Black Collective and national organizing lead of the RBG New Deal at the Movement for Black Lives, and an advocate in residence at Florida Memorial University. And Colette Pichon Battle is a Louisiana native and activist who fights to advance human rights for communities on the front line of the struggle against climate change. She is the founder of the Gulf Coast Center for Law and Policy, where she raises awareness on equitable disaster recovery, migration, economic development, climate justice, and energy democracy. So I will turn it over to Valencia and Colette.
Thank you, Shuo. Appreciate you. And bonjour, y'all. Bienvenue à tout le monde. Bienvenue. It is my honor to welcome you virtually to South Louisiana. I'm so happy the Power Shift Network chose Louisiana for its conference and gathering. Warms my heart. And I'm Colette. I use she, her pronouns, and I'm just excited to be here today. Valencia, you want to introduce yourself before we get started?
Hey everybody, this is Valencia Gunder or V. I use she, her pronouns, National Organizing Lead for the Red, Black, and Green New Deal. I am quite jealous that I'm not in New Orleans right now. But everybody else, I need all the New Orleans love. I know it's an amazing thing.
Word up. You should be jealous. Some of the bars are back open. The crawfish is I had some crawfish today. So I'm just sending spices to the Power Shift Network, and sending love to folks who can't be here in person. But now, if you wanted to come to Louisiana, the springtime is the time to come. So whenever we get this COVID together, let's get everybody back down here. But Valencia, I'm so excited to be talking to you and with you tonight. I think just shout out to that Power Shift Network. These youngsters,
Yes.
they really doing it. They are out here changing lives, doing things big, but also really interested in what Shua was talking about. Just how this stuff kind of comes together. So I'm just really excited to talk with you this evening. And I'm just curious. We're going to talk about environmentalism and climate and Black lives, but how did you get involved in environmentalism? How did you first start in this work that you're doing now? Do you even classify it as environmentalism? How did you get started?
So At first I didn't classify it as that. I was just like moving through community. I had been like doing movement work in my community since 2010. And one of the first things I ever responded to was the earthquake in Haiti. And Miami houses the largest population of Haitian people outside of the country of Haiti.
Mm.
And immediately I thought I needed to do something. Didn't know what I was doing or how I was going to get it to Haiti, but I got it to Haiti. And ever since then, I've just been looking at like the earth is falling apart
Mm.
and our people are falling apart too.
Okay.
And yeah, like, and I ain't gonna lie, the truth of the matter is in 2015, I was invited to a climate conversation in Liberty City. And immediately I was like, I don't want to hear these white people try to teach me how to talk about climate, like, or a science project. But they didn't do it. It was a room full of white folk and a few black folk. But they listened to us. They wanted to hear about how the climate was impacting us. And honestly, I knew what they were talking about, like, because people know and feel the
Mm-hmm.
impacts of climate. We just don't always have the language. And
Mm-hmm.
ever since then, I've been tied to the hip. I've been tied to the hip.
Word up. Word up. No, I think that's right. I think we have our own language, you know. As Black folks, we've always had our own language to describe lots of things, even when things are really cool. We call them hot. You know what I'm saying? So
That's
we
right.
we we don't always say things the way the mainstream says things, but we do know what's happening to us. Yeah, and I'm your story reminds me of my story, right? You were responding to Haiti. I really got into this work because of Katrina, which happened years before, and I'll tell you, um, watching what happened to not one city, not one place, but three states, many cities, many towns, many bayous, as we call them here. That's what you call some of the neighborhoods in rural Louisiana, to watch that impact and to watch the recovery that happened was really where I began to think about this work because my background is law. So, not even organizing. I didn't have any organizing skills. I had to learn all that over the past 15 years. But just legally, as a lawyer, watching the recovery and watching how unjust our systems of recovery were and how much legal advice people needed to just get through rebuilding their life, and how much legal paperwork there was in disaster, and how poorly executed and written the policies were that happened in disaster. All of these things, just as a lawyer, you start to say, like, what is this system? It is either broken or um, it's meant to be discriminatory. It's not, there's nothing here that's a coincidence when it's only these people who can't recover, right? Why is it all the Black people or all the poor people right here? Like that doesn't make sense. So you start to really think about, or at least I did, not just the science of climate, but the laws and social structures that are in place that we have to deal with in climate recovery. I didn't really make my leap from disaster recovery into climate change until a couple of years after Katrina. And the BP oil drilling disaster really connected the dots, right? It is the extraction of fossil fuels that is causing this extreme weather. We just got them in reverse. We got Katrina first and then BP. But the lesson was learned, the point was made. So yeah, that's how I got into this work. And, I'm still in it for the same reasons and hoping that this Biden administration and some of our state leaders are going to start paying attention to a new climate reality and start changing our laws and systems for us to be able to survive.
It's so needed. I don't even think people understand like how climate is connected to so many things, like how you are a lawyer and like you were looking at it through a lens of law and like community members who just were feeling the impacts, didn't have the words, but they were saying it. And how like that all can pour into a bucket to like build solutions and build leadership and everything. I think that's really dope.
Yeah. Yeah. Word up. Well, we're talking about how we got into this, and what really the understanding of environmentalism or environmental work or climate work or environmental justice work. There's a history there. The history that I really started learning as I dug deeper into this climate work, right? Which was really trying to figure out why you could see the divide. I don't know if you could see this from when you first started, but I could see the divide immediately between the environmental groups who were advocating on behalf of the marshes that we have lost to oil and gas drilling and shipping, and who were advocating on behalf of the turtles and the dolphins and the sea life that we lost during the BP oil drilling disaster. You could see the distinction between them and the folks who were fighting in Cancer Alley against these petrochemical refineries, who were fighting in Mossville. And there's two movements going on. There's this environmental justice movement, and then there was this environmental movement, and it just forced me to ask questions about, why is this so black and white? Aren't we all against these nasty refineries? And don't we all love turtles? I might have been wrong about the turtles, but I'm from the Bayou, so I just thought everybody liked the turtles. But but it was weird to me. Like, why is this breaking down into white and black? And I remember the first time someone called me an environmentalist. I was like, no, I'm not. That's them tree huggers, like that's those people over there. That's not me. But started looking into the history of environmentalism and started looking into how white landowners and privileged, mostly men, were really thinking about how to conserve the land of the United States for their own recreational benefit, right? And like, the mountain is so beautiful, I want to be able to come here and sit and enjoy myself, which is, they started making these national parks and stuff, regardless of the indigenous people who lived on the land or who migrated through the land, right? So there's this sort of colonization on top of colonized land. Not only are we going to take the land the first time, but we're going to make a national park around it so that we privileged people can come enjoy this natural beauty because it is to be enjoyed, as opposed to a very indigenous way of thinking about it, which is, you are of the land. It is to be enjoyed, but it's also to maintain and sustain your life. It's a much more integrated analysis. But then to see where that sort of protection, conservation for the enjoyment of the privileged few, to see where that really led to in the environmental movement. And then to hear about folks really stepping up in the environmental justice movement in the 60s and the 70s and really saying, like, listen, this is environmental racism. We're calling foul. We're fighting for this. The land where the refineries and all of these dirty things are put are oftentimes by Black communities, all the time by poor communities. And to watch this climate movement now have to really deal with the legacy of this white environmentalist movement and this people of color led and EJ movement at a time where really the two have to come together has been really fascinating. It's a moment in time for sure, but history is certainly showing up, and making itself known. I wonder, what are your thoughts around just the history of how we got here, environmentalism, climate justice, environmental justice, what was it that you learned about how we got here?
Yeah, I remember one of the first things I learned was the long conversation that were happening when Black people were starting to fight against toxic waste being poured into their communities. And I was like, this is happening everywhere. Oh my goodness. Cause sometimes you can like live in your bubble. And I'm like, Florida is doomed, right? It's doomed. But then I was like, the whole United States is doomed. And but then I learned about like in the civil rights movement, like how climate justice and environmental justice, even if they wasn't calling it those terms, were always a part of our conversation. When we talk about reparations, environmental issues are always a part of those conversations. And I thought that was extremely important to know that it has always been Black people fighting in this fight. But when we talk about the privilege that comes from the white environmentalists or the white climate spaces, one, the erasure that happens of Black work and the co-opting of Black work is something that I learned about, something that I have felt myself in this work more than one time. And I think about how sometimes, Colette, you always talk about the false solutions.
Yeah.
And then the solutions not being accessible and all of these things. And that is anti-Black. That
Right.
is anti-Black, that is racist, that is classist, and it excludes people from being a part of the thing that they are building anyway.
Yeah.
So I think about those dynamics and how they have always been there. Like we've always had to make sure that we bring up the racism and the anti-Blackness, and you get what I'm saying? Like
Yeah.
the
Yeah.
patriarchy of the
Yeah.
thing, all the time.
Yep. Yep. No, you mentioned the erasure. Um, this topic, environmentalism or environmental work, um, something that's been weaponized, something that's been used against us, something that's harmed us. It's such a gentle word. It's such a it means trees and animals. How can that be? How can it have such a racist impact, such a discriminatory impact? I think it's something we have to really get our minds around. If we don't shift, um, truly transform this movement, right, to include environmental justice as a vision of climate justice, to address environmental racism, to even honor what I think some of the conservationists were trying to honor, which is the beauty and sacredness of this land, right, and this place, but just not for uh, isolated or privileged or commodified enjoyment, but because we have a different understanding of who we are in the ecosystem, like really a more indigenous view of who we are as people, and therefore a more accountable understanding about how we treat this planet, um, and how we treat the people on this planet, and that really gets me to thinking about this moment. Peace to George Floyd, rest in power. Peace to all of these Black folks getting killed as a sacrifice for people to open their eyes. Just this moment of the extraction of Black people and the extraction of our Earth's most precious natural resources. There's something here that is, it's time for us to really address and make some changes around. How are you feeling about the role of Black women in this environmental movement? Have you seen this movement weaponize environmentalism against Black folks? What's been your experience? How are you experiencing all of
Well,
this?
well, one, weaponizing Black women by tokenizing us, wanting
Mm,
us to be to the front just to talk and not wanting to listen to our strategy and support our solutions. Um, I've seen it weaponized when Black women or Black leaders in the EJ and climate movement are being villainized when they take a stance on race,
mm,
sometimes from the organizations that they're leading,
mm,
right? We've seen this happen before. It also, I get a lot of feelings about, because yesterday was heavy.
yeah.
Yesterday was very heavy. Whew. It was super heavy. And I had a lot of thoughts last night. I had a lot of
Mm,
thoughts. I
mm.
was like, as a people, we deserved to see this one piece of accountability.
That's right.
But then we were quickly reminded when a 15-year-old was murdered by the police just a few hours later, a Black girl. And I think about the weaponizing of Black communities in so many movements, but this one specifically, I think about how science language is a weapon against Black communities or communities of color actually participating in this fight, right? Oh, you don't know how to write language and you don't know all the carbon and the numbers and all of that stuff. Just because folks don't know the science or they don't have all the degrees does not mean that
Hmm.
they don't understand what is happening here, right? And I
Right.
think that's one way that we weaponize Black people, brown people, under resourced communities, our unsheltered population, our incarcerated population, when this movement is supposed to be for everybody.
Yeah.
Um, And I think like the exclusion of it, and then also like building inaccessible solutions, like the price to get solar or things like that in our communities is so far reaching that the average person can't even wrap their minds around being a part of the solution. And I think those are definitely weapons. And that's how I look at it. It's a
Mm-hmm.
weapon. When it's not accessible to everybody, it's not a solution,
Mm.
right? Or if it's a solution and it still causes Black death, it's not a solution.
Right.
It's not a solution.
Say it. Say it. I think we might need to say that one to a few of our green group leadership. If it if there's any Black death in this policy, it's not a solution. Let's just call it. Let's call that what that is. That's murder. You know. And we're gonna have to start being honest about this stuff. I love how you brought up knowledge, right? People's knowledge. Uh, I mean, let's just be honest about it. The smartest, quote, smartest people with the highest degrees in education have led us to this point. So maybe we need a new kind of knowledge. Maybe we need, people who understand what it is to be accountable and rooted in their community. Maybe we need to listen to folks who understand that the tree and the soil can tell us what to expect in our own body, because of the conditions that you're living around and living in. Like maybe we need a new kind of knowledge, because the kind of knowledge that we've been putting forward so far has gotten us here, has gotten us these policies, has gotten us these leaders. Can you believe these people still going to the poll voting for these leaders who are still denying a climate crisis, who are still fighting over the little things? So there's a certain kind of intellect that I think it's time to devalue, and another kind of knowledge and intellect that it's time for us to lift up and be honest about. I mean, maybe, this sophistication is not all it's cracked up to be. Maybe going back into something simpler might be the way to go. Just a thought. You also talked about it making things inaccessible, the inaccessible solutions. And you mentioned the solar panels. And I just want to say, are solar being, unaffordable, or, how much it costs to get your solar array on your house. You basically have to have wealth to even have access to that stuff in most cases, right? We've got some community owned solar projects that we need to really expand and really think about. But there's another part to this solar and wind, and it's the extraction part. Who's asking the questions about where the raw materials come from, and who's asking the questions about which companies are positioning themselves to have a monopoly into an industry or renewable industry that we're going to have to shift over to. I mean, it's going to happen. It's inevitable. We're moving to renewable energy. Even oil and gas knows that. It's not a secret. But I am watching who's lining up for the big windfall in renewable, and I am watching where the raw materials are coming from and the conflicts that they're fueling in places like South America and the African continent. I'm just wanting to bring that up around inaccessible solutions. And if Black people are getting killed, it's not solutions. I like that. I like that. So what you been thinking about? Where you at these days?
One, we need to make sure that our renewable solutions are clean from the beginning to the end.
Mm-hmm.
And we can do that. That's one thing. I've been like really digging deep on that these past few weeks. I've been Googling and searching and looking up companies.
What the Google told you? The Google told you it's possible?
That my hybrid car don't mean nothing.
Hybrid car.
And I looked up how the car was made. I was like, I should have bought a diesel truck for this.
Yeah, we don't have the courage as Americans to talk about consumption. Everything we solve has to be with something newly purchased, which is capitalism. I mean, at some point we're gonna have to just be honest about how much we consume. Actually, it's better for you to keep your car make it last for a really long time. Stop buying new stuff, you know, like let me solve the climate problem with a hybrid car. That is so whack. That is such a false way of looking at this stuff, man.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
And then like the consumption, Colette, like you blew my mind 2 weeks ago when you said that 370 Ethiopians use as much consumption as one American.
One
I've been saying
American.
that on every panel, every time. I'm like, I've been like trying to figure out how I like not consume as much here.
Yeah.
I was blown by that number.
Yeah. One American consumes as much energy as 370 people in Ethiopia. It's a big number because you know what, V, when we were talking, two things we made a point about. One was the consumption of Americans, right? And that we're going to have to deal with how much we are actually demanding of this current market to give to us. As a nation, 5% of the population consuming 25% of the energy on the planet. Like it's us, you know, it's us. Um, but the other reason we were talking about that is because you remember we started talking about the conversation of population control and how that was
Mhm.
going to lead to this reproductive justice struggle around the control of Black and brown female bodies, you know, and how people are going to start saying, oh, the earth has too many people. And to a certain extent, that's not incorrect. You know, there is a booming population on the planet. And because of how we consume, the planet can't hold the population. There's some truth in that. But there's another piece of this, which is they always show the Black woman in Africa with the 4 kids, or the brown woman in South America with the children, with the child on her hip or something. And then they put something about population control instead of acknowledging that the population that needs to be controlled is the US population, just based on consumption alone. 370 Ethiopians, one American, to 370 people on the African nation. And the Ethiopia climate impacts is going to be worse because those folks, they don't have the money, they don't have the resources to withstand and rebuild the way folks will in this country, right? That's the kind of wealth we have where we're not even caring about what's happening to
Yep.
people around the planet. Yeah, man, this is we're gonna have to get a
I
handle
think
on this and protect Black women's bodies for sure.
that's true. And I want people to understand that climate is like an umbrella thing. Like it will impact all of the justices we're fighting,
Yeah,
right? And disaster in this new reality that we're going to be living in will make these things more exaggerated. So
that's
that
right.
is a fact. But I think through just the fact that we as a people, we're gonna have to realize for us to see the drastic change we want to see, we all gonna have to sacrifice.
Yeah,
Everybody, like, how do I consume less? How do I share? How do I not take up so much space or use so much energy or eat so much food? Like all of us will have to learn how to do that. And I feel bad for the under resourced populations, the underserved folks who don't add to the overconsumption, but are impacted the most from the overconsumption. So I'm ready. Like as I've been learning more about the consumption, I've been literally like looking at myself. Like,
mm-hmm,
what are you doing?
mm-hmm,
Well, how are you moving through this world? What can you do better to, step back some so that other people can, like that's just how I'm thinking as an individual. And I
yeah.
think that level of education and like thought process will need to be happening here on the American soil. And I just wanted to make you laugh real quick. I met a amazing um, bat farmer in Mexico. His name is Carlos. And Carlos said, America, trash can of the world.
Oh, not the trash can, not the trash can.
He said, the trash can of the world. I was like, woo, think he got a little fat going on there.
Well, I really appreciate you bringing up your process. I think that's really courageous that you have a process where you started asking yourself, what can I do? What am I doing? You're really looking at your role in the world, and I'm so proud of you for doing that around climate, mostly because I think so many people need to know how to do that around race, right? I mean, this is, if Black folks can have some self-examination, self-awareness, and a commitment to self-transformation around climate, we're really going to need our white allies to have that same kind of commitment and self-transformation around race. It's not that everybody is going to have all the answers immediately, but the facts are the facts. You know, the same way you could look at consumption and energy usage, people have to look at, you know, these police killings. They have to look at the plight of Black America. I mean, I have another point that I usually make in my talks with a map that just shows you where the Black concentration is in this country and where the poorest, the people who live below the poverty line, the largest numbers, these same states that are actually rooted in a legacy of slavery. I mean, at some point, we're going to have to acknowledge the long-term impacts and the continuous attacks and targeting that Black folks face. And it's not that people change in one day, but it's that commitment to self-transformation. That's one of the Hemes principles, that commitment to self-transformation that we really need to see from our white allies on race and from Black folks on climate, right? It's time for us to all expand our minds and expand our hearts into the things we know. I mean, it's necessary now. Now it's necessary. I tell Carlos, we do have a lot of trash. You know, part of our consumption is we don't even, our minds will go to what we have to give up, but we've never really stopped to pay attention to how much we waste. You know, we don't even have to give up. If we just wasted less, we could probably live half the life we still live. I'm not sure folks are ready to talk about trash, but we're gonna have to talk about trash and waste. Well, what's going on in South Florida? Like, what is the climate? What are the climate impacts looking like in South Florida, especially for Black folks? What are you seeing the realities to be in this new climate reality?
Yeah. One, it's hot as fuck, y'all. Like it's hot all the time. Like it's 100 degrees plus, like 60 or 70% of the year. I know y'all in Florida. Y'all don't really have a
It's the
winter. The
Sunshine
truth,
State.
I know, but the sun don't shine for everybody. The governor makes sure of that. But but like honestly, like, and I'm raised here. I've been here my whole entire life. When I was a child, like the seasons used to change. We had a spring. We never had snow, y'all. So I ain't saying that. But like during the winter time, it will cool off. Now, December, like on Christmas Day, like beach weather, 90 degrees. And I'm like, that's one thing. And y'all know when you have extreme heat, that comes with health impacts, right?
Mm-hmm.
People are we starting to see a really high number of folks dying from respiratory failure and things. They would never call it a climate death, though. They would never call it a climate death. And then we're starting to see more epidemics in within this pandemic. So y'all know we had the Zika outbreak here. Still don't know how mosquitoes stayed into 2 blocks, but that's what the scientists said, honey. I don't know. I'm still trying to figure that out.
Wait. The scientists said the mosquitoes only stayed in the 2 block radius.
Yeah, they said they only had to spray these 2 blocks because this was the only place that was at. And I'm like, mosquitoes fly and they multiply. So I was just like, I don't know how they managed to do it, but they said they controlled it, and we're gonna just take that in.
Look at the chat. Somebody was like, really? Not good.
And then we're starting to see the impacts of climate gentrification. That's a huge thing here. We're seeing it pre-storm. I know a lot of folks know about it because of the land grabs that happen. We saw that in the Gulf South. They do it all the time in the Gulf South. As soon as a little rain come down, they want to like, we got to knock your house down, you know? But here in Florida, they are literally gentrifying Little Haiti, Liberty City, Alapata, Hialeah, Black and brown communities because the seas are rising. We're at ground zero for sea level rise in the world. People are creating false solutions and putting them in pretty reports. They do not center Black people. Yes, they do ask me to sit on all the boards, and I'm usually the only Black person in there, and I'm usually the loudest Black person in there. And we're starting to see these storms come harder, y'all. People have been like, Florida been playing what they call hurricane roulette, Like it'll come toward us and it'll shift and a little thing. But what I'm afraid of for one of them superstorms to come and sit on top of us, and I don't think we're ready because I'm like people didn't understand Hurricane Irma and Hurricane Dorian and what was really happening. Because Sis came to town like I'm going to Florida for vacation and I'm taking my time, and she made it rain, and she went down to 2 miles per hour. She went down to 2 miles per hour, and Dorian went to the Bahamas and stopped for 2 days. Like that, we've not seen storms like this before, Colette.
Yeah.
Like we seen the Hurricane Katrina, which was horrible,
Right.
right? And that was something new too. Like
that was big. Yeah.
Yeah.
Let me jump in on the types of storms. I'm just trying to pay attention to my ASL lady so I don't talk over you too much. But I just want to say, Valencia, last year, 2020, the highest number of hurricanes ever on record. Do you know those hurricanes we saw coming to South Louisiana? They formed so fast. We've never seen them form that fast. I mean, you get used to, you grow up with these storms, right? You know how long they take to grow, you know how fast they're going to move. Every now and again, there's something strange, but like these, it was like in a row. We were in the cone, we was in the roulette cone of uncertainty in South Louisiana 11 times last year. 11 times. That's 11 times you have to contemplate evacuating your family. 11 times and during COVID, that's 11 times you have to figure out what to do if your house floods. That's anxiety and stress and worry. And that's assuming you have enough money to get out of there, which most Black people don't. And most Black women absolutely don't. So, I mean, this has just been an eye-opening 24 months, this COVID, this climate, these murders, the verdict yesterday, the murders yesterday. I mean, this is a moment for sure. I'm curious. What do we really need in this moment? If we want to see real change, if we want to see real solutions, if we want to see this moment turn into something much better than we've had in the past, what is it that we need to see, just from your perspective?
Abolition and reparations.
Hey.
Like it's some things that need to be dismantled. Big oil, big gas, big agriculture, big pharma. They need to go just as much as the police, right? They need to go. They don't serve nobody. I don't even know why white people like them. They serve nobody at all. They serve death. That's what they serve.
It's true.
And for us to really, really make a change, one, we're going to really need people to move out the way and let Black communities, under-resourced populations literally stand to the front of these conversations and build solutions. And we need our reparations to look like a lot of things, not just no little random STEMI check, because that's trash. Like we need stuff, And then
right.
I also think like some solidarity is going to be needed, some really deep solidarity. I know GCCLP prides themselves on working with indigenous communities in the Gulf South, making sure that when we move the needle for Black people, indigenous people are always to the side of us. And that's right. One of the most amazing things I think about one of the steps in the RBG New Deal that we're going to make.
Hey, the what?
The RBG New Deal. We're going to talk about that soon. But I think about all of like the levels of solidarity and understanding and connectivity that we're going to have for us, one, to be able to identify the real issue, right? Like white supremacy needs to be abolished. Like it needs to. Like America, it don't work, sis. Like get it out of there, right? And then when you abolish white supremacy, then the corporation of the United States of America will need to go and sit down somewhere too, and let our indigenous brothers and sisters take back this land the way they need to, so that Black folks we can start working together to build something great. But that's in our wildest dreams. But we can do that because our ancestors fought hard. But right now, I think what we can start with is some deep education, political education, connectivity through community, and we need us our own agenda. We need our own agenda.
Well, let me pause as they switch. I see you. See, we're getting good at it. So we need our own agenda, eh? Well, we have our own agenda. I don't know if you heard about the Red, Black, and Green New Deal initiative with the Movement for Black Lives, but we go live tomorrow with the website, redblackgreennewdeal.org. Our social media goes up tomorrow. We make a digital stand. We put the black line in the sand and we say, we have new climate standards for this nation. We have a new way of talking about this work on climate. When you save and advance Black lives, you save and advance the work of this planet and this climate. I am so excited about this Red, Black, and Green New Deal. Woo, woo. Look at they blowing up in the chat. Woo, woo. I don't know how to do that thing. I don't know how to do that. I'm terrible. I'm terrible. But anyway, I was trying. I'm very excited about it and I'm proud. I couldn't be more proud because for so many years, working as a Black woman in this white climate movement has been tough, isolating, brutal, disrespectful, angering, and to be able to help to advance an agenda to advance Black lives and address the climate crisis it just feels like an absolute just great opportunity that I'm so honored and humbled to have. And I'm working with you, V. We're about to go nationwide, going global on this. What's the best part of the Red, Black, and Green New Deal for you so far? Like, what are you most excited about?
One, that all of these amazing Black climate and environmental justice leaders from around the world can be in a space and not have to explain their Blackness. Come on now. Come on now. That's the part that I've been loving. And and like the bottom up organizing, talking to Black climate justice and environmental leaders has been so fulfilling for me. Every time I meet somebody else, some of them on this chat, shout out to all our RBG crew.
Shout out Black folks in climate. Shout out, we see y'all.
We see our buddies here, always supporting, holding us down. But that's been one of my favorite parts of the whole thing. And then also like my other favorite thing is learning so much, right? Like we're going to be able to teach people so many things. And guess what? This is the first time I've been like working in a job where I don't feel like I need to know everything. That feels good. But I like the fact that we are taking climate and environmental justice and we are breaking it down so that all of our people can understand it. Yeah. And we are creating it in a way that all people can be a part of it, right? We got a little something for the non-Black folks. We got work for y'all too. Come on in. But like I've been loving like just to build out the organizing, to be in the spaces to share my knowledge, and they share, people share with me, and I think of it like a commune, right? Like a place where you gather and you share information and tactics, and just love on each other. And that's the part of the RBG New Deal that I'm loving, like this organizing model, the work that we're going to be doing, the political education is not just something one person is doing. It is a collective process, and it's beautiful.
Yeah.
And honestly, when we drop the beat tomorrow, though,
I'm dancing tomorrow. Well, let me ask you to tell us a little bit about the pillars, but let me offer a little framing just for folks who are curious, and then we'll shift and open up for some questions. But we've got this Red, Black, and Green New Deal initiative. It's got 6 parts to it. The 6 parts are really research and data. So we're working with folks to help us really advance data on Black lives and climate, really developing that data out. The organizing and education, Valencia, I couldn't be more proud to have you leading that work and really teaching us what the folks on the front lines know so well, which is how to get ready for this climate crisis and how to survive it. We've got a piece of this that is literally federal legislation. We'll be drafting federal legislation called the Red, Black, and Green New Deal Act, and that is going to be broken down along those 6 pillars. I'll ask you to talk about that in a second. And we're doing litigation to all of the law school students, lawyers, folks who are out there, there's a role for us in this movement, and it is right alongside of these human rights protectors, of these water protectors, of these pipeline protesters. We've got to move with them, and we've got to file our own litigation too, to start getting some of these enforcement mechanisms to work in our favor. And then we're going to be pushing comms, communication specifically targeted to Black people, regular Black people, right? So not the righteous ones who are down, who read all the books, who already know, but like the ones who working every day, who trying to survive every day, who trying to raise their family and have a lot of struggles just to be Black in America every day. We want to make sure that we're communicating with them and to them. And so you'll see a big communications campaign come for the next several years. And then finally, we're building that leadership network. Black climate leaders coming together to see each other, to know each other, to connect, to build, to develop solutions together that are rooted in our Blackness, in the strongest and deepest part of us. I'm so excited about what this is going to be. We're going to push for about 2 to 3 years. It's going to be a multifaceted campaign to get more Black people into this climate movement. I'm excited to partner with the Power Shift Network, and Danny's leadership has just been amazing. I'm looking forward to partnering with a lot of folks. But can you tell folks a little bit about the 6 pillars, Valencia, and just how we're breaking that down so that it is accessible to regular folks?
Absolutely, absolutely. So y'all, it's so good. I've been smiling all day. I've been like, it's Christmas Eve. It's RBG Eve. That's what it is. I feel so good. More work to do, but it feels good. But the 6 pillars, y'all, with the RBG New Deal, on top of all of the things that Colette talked about and how we're going to do this work, but this is how we're going to focus our work. This is what we're going to be grounded in. So land, labor, water, energy, economy, democracy, right? Now I'm gonna go through those things. I know y'all probably like, well, what about this? And what about food? And what about, we got y'all. We got y'all, chill out. So when we say land, we're talking about land sovereignty, eminent domain, climate migration, land loss, housing, carbon capture, forests, air pollution, all the things, right? Labor, we're talking about jobs, local hire laws, health, education, disaster preparedness and planning, worker rights. Hey, we got everybody in here. Collective bargaining, federal contracting, international trade agreements, water, accessibility and affordability, sea level rise. We deal with that all the time here. Flood, drought, water as a human right, and rights of nature. Energy, right? We got solar and wind, renewable energy, public utilities, market-based solutions, environmental pollution, and relocation. That's going to be a huge thing we're going to talk about. And economy. Economy is a big thing. So disaster recovery, where they be sending all this money to when they say they sending the package down from DC. Because our people don't see now a penny of that, but that's going to change because we here. Holding that black line, transportation, corporate accountability, especially around brownfields and Superfund sites, false solutions, right? We not, none of that. No false solutions with the RBG New Deal. And we're not bending on that. And then debt elimination, that's a huge thing. And then democracy, right? Voting rights for climate migrants, census and redistricting disaster impacted places, self-governance, and the Stafford Act changes. So when we talk, when you hear RBG New Deal, these are the pillars of it, and all the things that Colette gave you, our organizing, litigation, communications, political education, is how we're planning on moving these things out there.
Word up, word up. We'll say it to you again: water, energy, land, labor, economy, democracy. This is how we're breaking this down, because we need not just y'all to understand what's going on. We need everybody to understand what's going on. I want to encourage those of you who are climate justice leaders and advocates to start breaking this stuff down, speaking a language that people understand. And you know what everybody understands? Water. You know what everybody understands? Land. They know what you're talking about. So let's start using these pillars as we move this Red, Black, and Green New Deal initiative forward. I'm so excited. We make our digital debut tomorrow on Earth Day. And we've been asked, specifically called by our friends in Brazil, and I'm asking all of you to stand with the Black farmers and the Black land defenders of Brazil to call on President Biden to hold Bolsonaro accountable to his people. That was literally a phone call we got from Brazil when they heard we were doing this Red, Black, and Green New Deal. They said, get your president to help protect this Amazon and make sure that folks know. So we're hoping that this Power Shift Network will make sure that folks know we're standing with the Black land protectors of the Amazon. We're standing with the indigenous protectors of water in Line 3, turning up there, Tara Hauska and that crew. The Black folks and the Native folks are moving together on this climate crisis, and we're gonna have to start addressing and taking some of these corporations and some of this extractive philosophy. We're gonna have to start taking it down, and we're gonna do it to build a better world. To build a better world. When Black folks get free, everybody gets free. This is we ought to all be excited about this. I'm excited to move through this with everyone, and V, let's open it up and see if folks have some questions. I think Danny might help us to see if there are any questions in the chat or coming for us. Danny, anybody out there? It's just me and V. Are we talking to ourselves? Anybody out there?
No, there are definitely people. There are lots of comments, but we're waiting. I'll give people a second.
Great. Should they put it in the chat? The chat. Okay, great. So V, as we're waiting on questions, I'll just say, I'm really excited about this launch, the digital launch tomorrow. So our website will be up, our social media will be up, but our main launch is May 11th, where we have the National Black Climate Summit. And I'm really looking forward to, really looking forward to that. Is that you, Danny?
I got questions up here.
Okay.
One is, curious to hear your thoughts on the just transition piece of labor and gas and oil industries, because we hear about how those jobs are so much better than renewables because of the union contract pay and benefits, which is a fantastic question. That's
a great question. V, I'll take this one just because I'm coming from the oil and gas land here. The just transition conversation is a tough one. It is tough for all workers who are especially in these fossil fuel industries that even before COVID and even before our economic challenges were already on the decline. All folks in oil and gas know that oil and gas is on the decline. You could have looked at the jobs reports that showed people losing their work. Now, of course, it's the poorest, the lowest paid folks who get dropped off first. So folks weren't really paying attention to who was losing their jobs in oil and gas, but they were overwhelmingly Black and Native and brown because that's who loses their jobs first. But the jobs were going. And then we had, this moment of COVID where there's been a lot of conversation about how oil and gas was struggling and needed to be propped up so that it could not lay people off. But that was really just a smokescreen. This industry is fighting tooth and nail. And the teeth and the nails right now are around carbon capture and sequestration and other terrible alternatives that are, quote, low carbon. So they fit into the clean or the renewable side of things. And so it's really difficult because the corporations are not telling the truth to their workers, to the communities that are next to them, or to the people that are representing them in the legislatures and in the Congress. But the interesting part about this, especially in places like South Louisiana, is that there are a lot of people who are of this land and are really starting to take a look at what this industry is doing to this land. It's not to villainize oil and gas. We're not trying to point at bad actors, although let me be clear, they are bad actors. This isn't an industry that did not know its impact. This is just like tobacco. They were hiding information. They knew the impact on people. They chose to sacrifice certain communities and dared us to look back, to lift up the covers and see what was really happening. But all of that said, the workers, especially in South Louisiana, are starting to look at the land that they love so much. I mean, the only thing people like more than a nice house around here is the ability to fish your food out of the water that's right next to your nice house. The ability to go out on your boat and have a beautiful day fishing with your family. Like, this is what everybody around here enjoys. And the oil and gas industry is accelerating a climate crisis that's taking that away from people. I think the biggest challenge now is to create a new reality. And we have two, probably three generations of people who've never been given the chance or the opportunity to innovate or imagine their own future. Through all of these systems, people's self-determination has been taken away. Through the education system, your ability to even have art class or music class or PE has been taken away. You don't even, your brain isn't even functioning toward dreaming, toward innovating. So, I think what we need is a vision for these workers who are transitioning, so that they see what they have in store is a better life, not just a different life and a change that they don't understand, but a better life and one that they determine for themselves.
That was such an incredible answer. Um, I am looking at the question. I just saw a question. I swear it was there about the role of, it's a lot of questions, but about the role of like federally protected land, like national parks. There we go. Public lands, like what's the place for those things in this movement? And, or is that system a lost cause?
Valencia, I don't know if you want to, I have an opinion, but I don't want to keep taking up space here.
I mean, you could take up the space because my answer is simple. It is the lost cause.
Et voila. I don't know. I love the public parks. I try to go to state parks all the time. Down here in Louisiana and Mississippi, they're just gorgeous. Texas, they're so beautiful. But I wonder, every time I pay my little $2 fee or whatever, like, who really should be the rangers of these parks? Who really should have these jobs? And what is the right of access to the indigenous nations on whose lands these parks exist? And I think the role of them, honestly, I think we have a role as climate leaders to protect all of the commons. So anything we have in the public trust, in a publicly held, I think we need to fight for them. But we don't need to fight for them to remain so out of reach and elitist, right? We need to democratize them, democratize these parks and these spaces. I personally think we need to, have our gatherings there. That's something that the Gulf Coast Center for Law and Policy and the Gulf South for Green New Deal initiative, I mean, we try to have our gatherings in natural spaces. I mean, what are we fighting for if not for this beautiful land and this water, So sometimes we need to be reminded. But I do think there has to be a conversation about returning lands to indigenous nations. And I don't know what those details are or how that will play out, but I think the public lands have to be a part of that discussion, as well as some private lands, especially lands that have been contaminated by oil and gas and these dirty industries. I think there's got to be a lot of cleanup and also reparations for people's way of life being hindered by a growing colonial power and its expansion. So those are some thoughts.
Awesome. How do you think we can hold the government accountable to subsidize renewables and not fossil fuels?
Oof. Subsidize renewables and not fossil fuels. Yeah, go ahead, V.
I mean, that's the $1 million question. I think we've been trying to take a stab at it for years. Different tactics, policy, lobbying. We did all the things, even trying to push folks to vote for people that have more of a sustainable lens on policy has been a huge thing for a long time. I think everybody is sitting in the back of their mind like, how do we get the government to listen? And I mean, y'all, like, we're gonna have to really do some really deep pushing and some really hard pushing because like it's 2021 and we still don't have any anti-lynching laws in America. And I'm like, like what is the reality of them actually moving on something of this magnitude? I think that we see certain leaders like the Biden administration trying to take a step in the right direction, but it's not good enough. It's still, to me, it's lined with some false solutions. But the radical change that the government needs to do, right? I just don't think they're willing to do it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's such a great question about subsidies. I love this audience. In Louisiana, this organization called Together Louisiana and Together Baton Rouge, they did this campaign where they just started looking at the amount of money that these dirty refineries and these polluting industries, the amount of tax breaks that they got from their local governments. And in Baton Rouge, the school board, it was brought to the attention of many of the governing bodies, but the school board said, actually, instead of giving you this break, we would like for you to pay your tax this year. Because if the polluting company would pay its tax, the entire school board budget could be raised in a year. They would literally have enough money for schools if the dirty industry would simply pay the land taxes that all other homeowners in Baton Rouge have to pay, right? But because it was an industry and given these tax breaks, it wasn't paying them and it was polluting them. So it's not paying to be here like you are, and it's killing you. Okay, something is wrong here. These subsidies are the federal government paying corporations to kill people. And we're going to have to be honest about that. And we're going to have to demand that our federal government give no more subsidies to any polluting industry ever. So that's oil and gas, that's coal, that's refineries, that's all these plastics, that's big ag, that's all of these things that are causing a dead zone down at the bottom of Louisiana because it's flowing down the Mississippi River. I mean, nobody should get money to cause that kind of damage. That's what we're doing. And to put a tax on carbon is a joke. We're talking about multinational corporations. No, we're talking about the largest multinational corporations. You put a price tag on anything, they will pay it. And the worst part of when people pay fines in this country, especially to the federal government and to the state government, is that the programs that push the money back into the community are always meant for the middle class. They never go to the front lines. So it would be putting a carbon tax, they would keep polluting, they would pay the fines, the money would go in a pot that would then benefit a middle class that excludes the people who are at the front line of the problem in the first place. It cannot be a carbon tax. We must stop this production. And you've got to have the courage to say it. This is not going to be about how comfortable can we be. We have been comfortable. All of the comfort that we have been allotted, we have taken. Now, can Americans be uncomfortable in order to save the planet? I'm not sure. We some privileged and, we kind of, somebody makes us mad, we got to cancel them. Somebody, we get uncomfortable, we got to complain about it. We don't really, we're the worst. The world can smell us a mile away because we just complain about everything if it's not to our liking. But at some point, we have to see ourselves not as individual Americans, but as citizens of a global society that owe accountability to this planet. And the stuff that we're doing has to stop. And we cannot continue to sacrifice frontline communities in this country or frontline communities throughout the global South. We're going to have to change.
So the next question I got for you is, how does the Red, Black, and Green New Deal compare to the Red New Deal? Also, like the question about addressing global impacts of U.S. global policy. Liked, like enjoyed, not like
Oh,
as
okay.
in. Yeah.
I was like, what? I had to look at my closed captioning on that one. Uh, well, yeah, V, you want to take it?
Yeah. So the Red, Black, and Green New Deal, as I lifted up at the beginning, is when we came up with the name was based off of the National Black Flag, RBG. However, um, in the future, probably the near future, we will be connecting with our Indigenous brothers and sisters to stand in solidarity. So that red in the RBG and the red, black, and green will eventually mean Indigenous, our Native brothers and sisters, to be a part of our fight and take a strong stance against it. So yeah, I'm looking forward to that too. I'm looking forward to being in solidarity with other groups that are fighting for the land in the proper way. Because I
Mhm.
know, I mean, I haven't read the entire Red New Deal, but I know for a fact Indigenous people are not going to be doing anything when it comes to false solutions and sacrificing the lives of their people, the lives of no people, actually, you know. So that's our plan. Absolutely.
Yeah.
Um, let's see what else we got. Does the RBG agenda support Biden's climate core?
Oh, the Civilian Climate Corps? Yes. We love it. We support it. I think it's a great program. I also think we're going to have to be a part of tailoring it so that it can not just be um, another AmeriCorps or Teach for America or Peace Corps that is only accessible to so few very privileged people. And every now and again, you'll see a Black or a brown person in there. This has got to be much more inclusive and broad in its reach. And I also think we're going to have to, not just provide an experience for the folks who engage in this core, in this climate core, but real analysis building, political analysis development. We can't just have folks who are doing work without thinking about what's happening and who are not focused on intentionally shifting our society. So it is a great step. I really love the idea. I love where it's going. We are endorsing or in favor. I don't know what you can do. We are in favor of this civilian core. However, we hope to engage with this administration and with other advocates around making this accessible and really prioritize the front lines to build and be solutions in their own community. The worst thing we could do right now is send a whole bunch of privileged white kids down to a climate disaster and give them their experience. And I say this because this is what happened in Hurricane Katrina. So many people got to come down to my community, have their experience, and go back. And there was no real connection. There was no real work being done. There was just a victimization, a victim role, and a savior role. And we've got to make sure that this core does not turn into that. There are critiques of these types of programs of the US around the globe. And we've got to make sure that this time we do it in a way that is dignified, in service of the community, and accountable to the community. But I do like the idea. Very excited about it.
So the last question that we're going to offer, and I think that this is going to take a little bit longer, is what kind of role do you see for youth activists moving forward? Specifically, I would love to hear your thoughts on like specifically Black youth activists, white youth activists, and youth activists who don't identify as either. So like non-Black people of color.
So the working groups is the number one place where you can get involved. One, when it comes to Black youth, we want you. Please come. Please be a part of our working group. We have some youth in the space. We can use more Black youth in the space. I am super excited to have Black youth in the space because it brings like this whole new, fresh, a breath of air, all this energy that my almost 40-year-old behind don't have yet. No more, rather. And it brings in fresh new ideas like that we just not thinking about. So we definitely want to make sure that our Black youth know that they are welcome into the RBG New Deal space. Um, I would love to see a whole youth RBG track going on. We coming soon. But shout out to the Black youth that's already in the RBG Black leader space. But yeah, like if y'all on this call and more youth wants to be a part of it, please join us. Use that same exact link. Um, and for our non-Black partners and comrades here, hey, this non-Black allies network is the place for you. They meet like I think monthly or twice a month. The space is ran by this amazing leader in Louisiana, and it's a great space where we learn and we share and educate this group of folks on how they can be of support of Black leadership. And we would love Black non-Black youth in that space also. And for folks who don't identify, well, I'm gonna put it simple. We have a Black leader space and a non-Black leader space. So if you identify as Black and you're Black, we want you in one group. If you're non-Black, we asking you to support us in another space. We do have work to do, all of us, from youth to the elders to our Black, of course, our Black leaders, right, being at the front and the center of the conversation. But for our non-Black community, we want to make sure that you all have a space to be of a support role.
Yeah, and I just want to, I totally agree with that. And I just want to say, I think, we need the youth. This generation has just been amazing. Y'all amaze me. I am amazed. Um, we need the next generation in here being as courageous as y'all have been, standing and declaring that Black Lives Matter while you declare the other work that you're moving. We need you, doing the work to learn how to follow Black leadership. This is something not only have you not been taught to do, but you've been actually taught to question. And that's going to be, a challenge for us as we build out this movement with more Black and Brown leadership. But we need you. The energy of the emerging leaders is what has always changed our social systems. It has always been the ground game. You've got the legs, you've got the energy, you've got the courage. We need you in there. And we need you to bring, I think, a little humility into the spaces of learning, because this fight did not just begin. It has been going on for a really long time. The most honorable thing that you could do is to listen to some of these warriors who've been out there for a long time. You can save yourself a lot of grief, a lot of trouble. And also, my job and folks like me, our job is to make sure that, you have allies when you challenge the generations that have come before you, right? When you need some folks to help clear the way a little bit, so you can take your stand. We will be happy to do so. We're looking forward to you coming into your leadership, standing up and speaking loud, because you are powerful and beautiful, and what you're bringing to the work is necessary for the movement. So I'm excited to stand next to you, all of you, real soon.
Fantastic. And then I think the last question is, what kind of messaging, or I think actually I would love to invite you again to like verbally lift up the working groups, and I'm going to drop the links in and just like give a sense to folks about what that engaging with your working groups looks like and what folks can expect after they sign up.
Yeah, so Colette, you want to take?
No, go ahead.
Okay, so one, y'all will be able to work with me. Hey, I convene the space, so come on and be great with me. But yeah, it looks like you joining in a collective process that we are going through to build out all of the components of the Red, Black, and Green New Deal in its whole entirety to help us build out a amazing radical Black climate agenda. It looks like you've given us a few hours of your time every 2 weeks, and be willing to bring your best selves to the space and to lean into a collective process, understanding that we're going to learn differently because we're from different places in America. But it's great and it's fun, and we laugh and we become family. So I'm super excited about that. And our ally space is the same exact way, but it's just not Black. So one, this space is a collective process also, right? We want to hear the ideas. Hey, for you folks who fight against anti-Blackness in your organizations and you do climate and environmental justice work, what are some of those ideas? What are your most radical thoughts that you know your non-Black leadership won't allow you to do because it's too radical, right? What are those ideas when we talk about abolition? We want to hear them. We want you all to teach us those things, and we ready. We want to hear from you. So the links are dropped in the chat. Dennis just dropped them. You click on those links. You will hear back from us, either myself or my comrade Emma, who's not here with us tonight. But she is probably way more thorough than me. So you'll hear from her quicker than you'll hear from me. But yeah, support that. And tomorrow we need y'all on social media. We need y'all to repost, share, hashtag. Make us go viral tomorrow, y'all.
Oh, not viral. I
Make us go
love
viral.
it. I love it. I don't even know what that means exactly, but yes, do it. Do it. Check us out at redblackgreennewdeal.org. That's going to be the website going live tomorrow. We'll be hashtagging RBGND, so you can follow that on Twitter. We're setting up Twitter accounts, Instagram. You'll see all that tomorrow. You'll also see a shout out to those farmers in the Amazon tomorrow, who we said we would mention them as we mention Black folks around the globe engaging on climate. So feel free to push those messages back out. Specific request was to get our president to hold their president accountable around the Amazon. So things are looking good. We've got work to do. This is not a sprint. This is a marathon. We're building movement, and we're building it for long-term change. So the working groups and the launches are just the beginning. We have a lot of other programming coming in the summertime. We've got month-long deep dives on each of those pillars that Valencia went through. They're going to contain movement and art and work, and it's just going to be great. So looking forward to seeing y'all joining us. We've got space for everyone. We need everyone. When all Black people are free, we free everybody. So this is going to be us getting everybody free and the world free.
Yep. I'm gonna just say my small little close up. One, y'all, the movement for Black lives is about to take a very hard stand, a radical stance on climate as it relates to Black lives. We're super excited. That's why they went and got the best Colette Pichon battle to make sure that we stayed grounded. And, they had to come to the South because we do it good down here. But we're gonna take everybody with us, right? That's what we're gonna do. And I'm super excited to work with everybody here, to be a part of the Power Shift family. I mean, I've been a part of the Power Shift family for a few years now, so I'm super excited to be more in connection with you all. Yes, 2016, climate gentrification in Orlando, I remember. But yeah, I'm looking forward to it. I'm super excited. I am hella proud and happy to work next to Colette Pichon battle on many, many levels, y'all. Y'all don't even understand the greatness that she is for our movement in general, but especially as it relates to climate and Black people and Indigenous people and under-resourced people. One, she'll fight for you in court, and she gonna feed you good. That's what it is.
That's just good. That's just Happy Earth Day. Happy Earth Day. I was just gonna say that's just good Louisiana home training. We feed everybody good now. We feed everybody good.
That's right.
Thank you so much, Danny. Thank you so much, Power Shift. Thank you, ASL Interpretation. Thank you, Spanish Language Interpretation. Thank you, Shul. Appreciate y'all. This has been great.
And thank you, Colette and Valencia. I started taking notes at the beginning about some of the insights, and I just gave up. There's probably like 20 mic drops that could have happened. So thank you for everything you shared, and most of all for for the work that you do. Because, I think the one thing I just want to reinforce that was, part of my own journey and realization is when Black folks get free, everyone gets free, right? Supporting Black lives is not only just, it is a matter of your survival, right? So please sign up for the RPG New Deal, and I hope to see you all in the trenches soon. Thank you, everybody.